I'm trying to remember to do that every morning. So the people that just pop in, they can kind of see. Let me try to do it over here. Hold on, I'm doing it on Facebook too. I'm supposed to be here a little bit earlier to make sure it was there. I actually remembered at the last minute, so hold on, y'all. Took my thing out my ear. Pop it out. Okay, let's see. Okay, comment section. C.I.A. document. Tiffany, hey girl, hey. Hold on, y'all. I'm posting. I'm trying to start something new. I'm gonna make sure I paste while we're live what we're reading from the Torah and the extra document or book that we're reading along with it. Hold on. All right. And because I generally post it after the video was done, but sometimes I don't get right to it because I have to do other stuff, and sometimes I'll update the video a little bit late. So I'm just trying to be a little bit more efficient. Okay, there we go. We got it in both places. Okay. Okay, so you got today's reading, Genesis 10, 11, and 12. And then you got the C.I.A. document already posted there. All right, so let's see. Okay. All right. Tiffany, you can see that over there. You too. Mom, shalom, shalom. Joy, grand rising. Ali, shalom, shalom. Okay, beautiful people. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. It is January the 14th, 2022. It is day number 4 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, another 3-year consecutive day count. Day 1022. Yep. I thought I made a mistake yesterday. I had to double check. Day 1022. And today, y'all, like I just said, we're reading Genesis 10, 11, and 12. And then we're going to pick back up in the C.I.A. document where we left off at yesterday. It's a few more things I want to share with y'all, too. But before I share those, I think we probably need to get past it either in a C.I.A. document or in my big toe. Nikki, happy Friday. Happy Friday. All right. So I'm trying to like take y'all along so you don't get too overwhelmed with information, so we can kind of see how it goes together. Instead of just jumping into stuff to do stuff, you should probably learn about it first so you're not spooked out when it begins to happen. Like we talk about when spiritual gifts begin to kick in, especially when you're in there praying in tongues, or people call it chanting, whatever, when that begins to happen, so you're prepared, right? Okay. Audrey, shalom, joy, happy Friday. All right, y'all. So let's get going. Just this right here. Go ahead and pull up the Shema, which is found, everybody knows where, Deuteronomy chapter 6. All right, y'all. A call for wholehearted commitment. Oh, I think my head is cut off on Facebook a little bit. Might be a little bit better. I'll probably take the backup some. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. All right, y'all. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that Yahuwah your God commanded me to teach you. You must obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy, and you and your children and grandchildren must fear Yahuwah your God as long as you live. If you obey all his decrees, commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as Yahuwah, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Listen, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, he is one God. And you must love Yahuwah your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Yahuwah your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give you when he made a vow to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget Yahuwah who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear Yahuwah your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must only use his name. You must not worship any of the gods of the neighboring nations, for Yahuwah your God who lives among you is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test Yahuwah your God as you did when you complained at Massa. You must diligently obey the commands of Yahuwah your God, all the laws and decrees he has given you. Do what is right and good in Yahuwah's sight, so all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that Yahuwah swore to give to your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in the land, just as Yahuwah said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that Yahuwah our God has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand. He did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so he could give us this land he had sworn to give to our ancestors. And Yahuwah our God commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him, so that he can continue to bless us and preserve our lives as he has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands Yahuwah our God has given unto us. All right, beautiful people. So let's get started. Oh, shoot. What I just knock over? It was a nail clippers. Wasn't nothing breakable. Auntie, Grand Rising, Kimuntu Kikuyu Star 87, Grand Rising, C.I.A, Yahuwah is one. Hallelujah. Yes. May we all be filled with the great spirit of Yahuwah. All right. All right, y'all. Pull up my spots. Genesis chapter 10. Okay, y'all. Okay. This is the account of the families of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the three sons of Noah. Many children were born to them after the great flood. Descendants of Japheth. Hang in there, y'all, because we're going through the lineages. Don't zone out on me. Hold on. The descendants of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The descendants of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The descendants of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodanim. Their descendants became seafaring peoples that spread out to various lands, each identified by its own language, clan, and national identity. The descendants of Ham. The descendants of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Septica. The descendants of Rama were Sheba and Dedan. Cush was also the ancestor of Nimrod, who was the first heroic warrior on earth. Since he was the greatest hunter in the world, his name became proverbial. People would say, this man is like Nimrod, the greatest hunter in the world. He built his kingdom in the land of Babylonia with the cities of Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh. From there, he expanded his territory to Assyria, building the cities of Nineveh, Rehoboth, Kala, and Rezin, the great city located between Nineveh and Kala. And there's a lot more information on Nimrod in quite a few places. The Legends of the Jews, not Wars of the Jews, but Legends of the Jews. You can find some of it in the Book of Remembrance of Enoch. You can find some in Jasher. And there's a couple other resource manuals that is frowned upon by the church world that gives some more details from the account of the other people that were there, right? That they don't like to talk about, that were there, that were fighting against Nimrod. So, but, okay. Mizraim, which is another name for Egypt. Mizraim was the ancestor of the Ludites, Ammonites, Lehabites, Nephatites, Perithites, Casluhites, and the Caphtorites, from whom the Philistines came. Canaan's oldest son was Sidon, the ancestor of the Sidonians. Canaan was also the ancestor of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. The Canaanite clans eventually spread out, and the territory of Canaan extended from Sidon in the north to Gerar and Gaza in the south, and east as far as Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim near Lasha. These were the descendants of Ham, identified by clan, language, territory, and national identity. Descendants of Shem. Sons were also born to Shem, the older brother of Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the descendants of Eber. The descendants of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram were Uz, Hu, Gether, and Mash. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. Eber had two sons. The first was named Peleg, which means division. For during his lifetime, the people of the world were divided into different language groups. His brother's name was Joktan. Joktan was the ancestor of Almodad, Shelef, Hazar, Maveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzar, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were descendants of Joktan. The territory they occupied extended from Mesha all the way to Sephar in the eastern mountains. These were the descendants of Shem, identified by clan, language, territory, and national identity. Conclusion. These are the clans that descended from Noah's sons, arranged by nation according to their lines of descent. All the nations of the earth descended from these clans after the great flood. Genesis chapter 11. Talain, hey girl, hey. At one time, all the people of the world spoke the same language and used the same words. As the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. They began to say to each other, "Let's make bricks and harden them with fire." In this region, bricks were used instead of stone, and tar was used for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world." But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building. "Look," he said, "the people are united, and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other." In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the world, and they stopped building the city. That is why the city was called Babel, because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. In this way, he scattered them all over the world. And some of those same references, you will find more to this story and what was actually happening during the building of the tower. But if you go back to last year, I think it was last year, when we were reading, early last year, we started reading the Legends of the Jews, and it got into all of that. So if you haven't read it, or if you don't have a copy of it, you can just go listen to me read it last year. The line of descent from Shem to Abram. This is the account of Shem's family. 2 years after the great flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad. After the birth of Arphaxad, Shem lived another 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, he became the father of Selah. After the birth of Selah, Arphaxad lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Selah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. After the birth of Eber, Shelah lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. After the birth of Peleg, Eber lived another 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Ru. After the birth of Ru, Peleg lived another 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Ru was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. After the birth of Serug, Ru lived another 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. After the birth of Nahor, Serug lived another 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. After the birth of Terah, Nahor lived another 119 years and had other sons and daughters. After Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran, the family of Terah. This is the account of Terah's family. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran was the father of Lot. But Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, the land of his birth, while his father, Torah, was still living. Meanwhile, Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. Milcah and her sister Iscah were daughters of Nahor's brother Haran. But Sarai was unable to become pregnant and had no children. One day, Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans. He was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped at Haran and settled there. Terah lived for 205 years and died while still in Haran. Last chapter for today, Genesis chapter 12, the call of Abram. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your native country and your relatives, your family, your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on the earth will be blessed through you." So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth, his livestock, and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived at Canaan, Abram traveled through the land as far as Shechem. There he set up camp beside the oak of Moreh. At that time, the area was inhabited by the Canaanites. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I will give this land to your descendants." And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country, with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages toward the Negev. Abram and Sarai in Egypt. At that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, "Look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife. Let's kill him, then we can have her.' So please tell them that you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you." And sure enough, when Abram arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarai's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken into his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. Then the Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abraham and accused him sharply. "What have you done to me?" he demanded. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why didn't you say she is my sister and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here." Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abram out of the country along with his wife and all his possessions. So if you read in the Legends of the Jews, you will actually see more detail about this and how Sarai was actually crying out to Yah during this time, which then interrupted Pharaoh's sleep. And it was actually a couple nights. It gives way more detail to this story. And it tells you some of the deeper details. And it was a couple times that his sleep was disturbed. And he kind of figured out that, wait a minute, we shouldn't be touching her. But he actually did try to approach Sarah to sleep with her a couple times, but she had already prayed. Y'all had sent her some supernatural help, and every time Pharaoh would go to try to touch her, like, "Come here, girl, come here, let me tell you something." The angel would strike him. It was hilarious reading the story. Y'all gotta go read it. Matter of fact, I'll give y'all the link to it. Hold on. So y'all can actually go in there and read it today if you want to. Because they have it online too. You can just click right to it. And Sarah and Pharaoh. Okay. All right, beautiful people. So that's that. That was a pretty fast reading today. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Let's go ahead and open up this document. If you don't have it, all the way at the top, I posted at the top. I'm going to start posting the link to the stuff that we reading at the top. So if anybody come in late and they ask, what are we reading, it'll be there. So just direct them. If somebody asks if I don't see it, just tell them go back to the top so they can see the portion of the Torah that we're reading, and also the link, if there is a link or whatever it is, where we're at, it'll be there too. Okay. Open up my Kindle. No, it's not my Kindle. It's in my books. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so we stopped on this is on page 9 in the CIA document, and we paused at number 10, energy entrainment. Okay. You'll be reading on Shabbat. It's good, Joy. It's so good. Okay, so energy entrainment is number 10. As the body is turned into a coherent oscillator, vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electrostatic medium, the specific exercises included in the gateway tapes enjoin the participant to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably by using energy from the Earth's field, which the body is now in training because of its ability to resonate with it. This puts the body's energy field into homogeneity with its surrounding environment and promotes movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment, partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic mediums are now a single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into focused coherence at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude so as to entrain analogous frequencies in the universe for data collection also promotes enhancement of bodily energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement when he is ready to do so. More will be said about this topic later. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other human minds similarly attuned. Okay. So I wanted to reread that before I gave a quick recap. Okay. So remember, we're reading this document, the CIA document, before we start reading My Big Toe, which is more scientific evidence that the spiritual things that we experience and what we first learned about, possibly if you come from the church world, gifts of the spirit and stuff. But what they're doing, they are agreeing that these things actually happen. And of course, it's mixed with shenanigans, depending on who's teaching you about it, right? But what they've done is, while they've been practicing it on the let's say the secular side or whatever, they wanted to test these principles and found out these things really are true. They work. You can really have out-of-body experiences, and it's not just set aside for one group of people. Like, these are not gifts that only belong to the church, or you have to go through these steps to do this before you can get it. It's innate inside of every human being, and you just have to learn how to tap into it. So what they did, even in their cover letter, like I mentioned yesterday, they said they tested these principles, and before they did it, they removed all the religious dogma from around it, because you got different religions and religious factions teaching about it, and they have their own religious dogma most of the time that they're put on it, so the religions are kind of pitted against one another when you really shouldn't be. You're talking about the same thing, you're just using different terms, and you stunt your growth altogether. You keep yourself separated, not realizing you're all doing the same thing. You just attribute it to something different than what I attribute it to, right? So once they themselves figured that out, they said, we're going to remove all the religious talk whatsoever, and we're going to give you the scientific proof of how this happened and how anybody can begin operating in it. You just have to learn about a little bit about your body. And so a couple people been asking, like yesterday, somebody, when we was going over the binaural beats portion in here, do I recommend some or could I give a link? I said I would give you some. What I did, I gave you a guideline, because I don't want people to say, oh, well, she picked this one as this. I don't want y'all to feel like I'm doing any kind of witchery over y'all. So I'm giving y'all guidelines so you can be diligent about what you're doing and take responsibility for your own life. I'm giving you guidelines that I know of, that I've personally experienced, on how to choose what's good and what's not so good for you, right? And you can begin to develop your own spiritual gifts. I'm just kind of here just giving you just a little bit of guidance based on my personal experience, not on anybody else's. If I'm giving you somebody else's experience, I'll let you know this is their experience, what I've learned from their experience, if I've learned anything. So for the last few days, because people emailed me that asked me, well, can you share something? Well, what do you know is safe, right? What's safe for me is based on what I understand at this moment. It may not be so safe, not that it's not safe, but hear what I'm saying. It may not be so safe for you at this moment if you don't understand all of what I understand. That's why I tell you, you just kind of educate yourself. When you educate yourself on what the process is and what's actually happening, you will fare way better than somebody that's like, oh, that works, give it here, let me do it. Next thing you know, you astral projecting and you don't know how to get back inside your body. So my goal is not to just give you stuff just to go try. I want to teach you about it from how I understand it, in hopes that's kind of maybe not your starting point, but it'll help you in your research, so to speak, on how to navigate through the weeds and stuff, right? So you can make the conscious decision. So you can be fully conscious of your own decisions and what you're doing, and allow y'all just to guide you, because that's what I do. All right, Father, I don't know now, So I just kind of go through my training. What do I understand? Okay, I understand this about the body. This is the body. This is this happening, So, but saying all of that, what I will recommend, and simply because I like how he explains it, and he does the same thing, right? I was like, dude, I can probably share you. Now, he will give you some tips on how to astral project. People been asking me forever, can you show me how? I'm just, because I don't really know what you're doing in your personal life, I don't want to give you something that could possibly harm you. And you go on astral project and your spouse come in there, you trying to figure out how to get back in your body. They think you dead. They can call the paramedics, and if you don't get yourself back in your body before too long, bro, if you get back in your body, you might be waking up and you already in the grave. That's happened, people, because people have woken up in the morgue. So that's why I don't want to just give you techniques. First, before any of this, we got to despookify everything. All the craziness that we learn in church. Oh, it's the devil this. Oh, you're a witch, warlock. Oh, you're practicing magic. No, what seems like magic to you is really a lack of understanding, right? It's a lack of understanding. Think about it. Over all the years, every time something new happens, or we come upon something new, it's like the fear of the unknown. And humans are so spooky, we scared of everything. I remember I had this book. I forget the name of it, and I lost. It's been so long. But it was a book of different inventions that were created through the years when they were introduced to the masses. It was like a scary thing. And the bathtub was one of them, right? That tickled me so much, because remember that when they built houses, they just kind of built places, and then you had like an outhouse, right? But when the bathtub came on the scene, y'all, when I say it tickled me, it freaking tickled me. I'm like, if the people who lived back in that day who called bathtubs a work of Satan, they would be appalled to know that we have one inside our houses now. But things like that, right? So it's like the fear of the unknown or a lack of understanding. So it's like everything we don't understand, we attribute it to the devil. And depending on what religious faction we're a part of, they don't help us any in our understanding. They just, yes, the devil, stay away from it, because they don't know either. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy, Father help us all, right? So I said all that to say, I am going to give you some school of wizardry. Joy, look, So I will give you something. Did y'all go back and watch? Did y'all have a chance? I know you have to purchase it because I'm not sure that there's a free version, but you can get it from Amazon Prime, and you can also watch it on YouTube. The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, not the other one, specifically the Fifth Kind. The doctor in that, Dr. Stephen Greer. When I watched it, I looked him up. Yes, I was like, what is this? What did they say? I had to go back to the movie, get the doctor's name, right? Because I like how, for one, he's very level-headed, and he worked inside the government, and he has a lot of experience, especially with out-of-body experiences and things what we would call the spiritual gifts, seeing in the spirit, open visions. He had a lot of experience with it, and he actually, in what I'm gonna share with y'all today, to kind of help you out a little bit, because it despookifies some stuff. It'll give you. He don't call it astral projecting. He's going to teach you how out-of-body experiences happen and how you can practice it. Just some safe stuff anybody really can, right? You can practice it by yourself, but he's going to give you some basic information, which I've talked about. I was like, oh, I like those examples that he gave and how he walks people through. But it is it's on YouTube. I'm gonna share it after we get done, because I need y'all to listen to me. I'm going to tell you where to get right to it, because some people's like, look, yes, Dr. Stephen Greer, Joy, it's Greer. You spelled it wrong. It's Greer. Listen, he has a lot of material out there on his channel, but I'm going to tell you the one to go to where he talks about it, because in the title, you may not be able to recognize it. So I'm going to leave you the link, but listen to me carefully, people. Okay. It's like, when he taught it, it was it looked like he was in a conference room in front of a bunch of people. It was like a whole week-long thing where he was there talking about stuff, right? So what they did, this portion, when he got to this, it's one video, but it's broken up into 6 videos, and it's in a playlist. I'm gonna give you the whole playlist. Now, I recommend that you listen to part 1, right? The first video. Now, in the first video, he's going to go through and he's just going to kind of give you background, and he's going to tell you how it started, what actually happens, the machines the military have created to actually just, like y'all seen the movies, how they take people, the military or somebody take people, and they'll put them on a machine and extract their memories and stuff. He'll tell you about a machine that the military created to actually do that. Not necessarily extract your memories, but they can project through you, right? And so what they do, and these are not like lower level military. When I was in the military, I would be considered lower level, bottom of the totem pole, right? So I wouldn't have been privy to this, although when I went to work TAD in security, I was privy to a little bit of information that I overheard that kind of stuck with me. And then when I got out the military and I was a contractor, when I was working at GIFCOM out here in Suffolk, I worked for one of the top scientists in there. I was his secretary. And I was also the one sitting in on those meetings. So now all this stuff that I got experience with, and then I was on my job, but I was completely oblivious to why the certain jobs I had, the certain positions I was at, how all of this will accumulate up to this moment and help me understand what the heck is going on. So I would have to be there at every Monday meeting where the scientists at GIFCOM would come in. Those ones that worked in the SCIF, it's a secure area that you have to have like a top secret security clearance in. They was always doing this traveling, would come back, they would debrief on some of the things. Now, they would let me, they would let me stay in the meetings because I'm taking notes, right? They're using acronyms and stuff. But when they start kind of, I would say, like talking over my head, and I'm like, okay, yeah, they done switched into code words. Let me just go ahead and I'm typing what they're saying while I'm doing pretty much dictation, taking notes and stuff from the meeting and everything, because I would have to get the notes and then I would have to submit it to them. Okay, this is good. Okay, adjust this. All right, now disperse it to everybody, right? So all of those things, I kind of kept deep within me. And so I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, holy crap, was this what they was doing? Oh, wait a minute. So I remember this. Oh, the weather machines he was talking about. Holy crap. Right. So all of this stuff now that I've experienced my military career, when I was a contractor for the government, when I got out of the military, all of this stuff is beginning to make sense now. I'm like, holy crap. Okay. So I said all of that. Don't just skip to the good stuff. So you can go in there and start astral projecting, or they call it remote viewing, right? You can do this. And I realized as he began to explain the process, I'm like, God darn it, that's what I was doing. I didn't call it that. I just knew that I just knew I could do that. It's just certain thing I didn't tell anybody about, but I know how to get information. I'm like, okay, you don't want to tell me? I'm gonna get it. But I didn't want people to think I was weird. And I used to talk to my aunt. I would ask her questions. I was like, well, do you think it's weird that I know how to do this? She said, no. Because my aunt has spiritual gifts. I'm not going to name which one, but my aunt has certain spiritual gifts where she's able to see into the spirit, what church will call or whatever. So she was familiar with the stuff I was trying to explain without, I was trying to keep myself from sounding crazy, right? But things that he began to explain, I like him. And he's going to give you some pointers on how to do it and how to practice it safely without all the spiritual scariness, right? Without all the spiritual scariness. And where is Jen? Did she come in yet? Because she's been sharing some stuff with me that she's been going through. I think this would be, Jen, you here yet? Let me know if you're here. If not, I'm going to send her a message. I know she in California, so it's early there for them. But some things she's been experiencing, I think this would be really helpful for her, right? So I'm gonna share this with you. Watch it. It's like I said, it's 6 parts. And they're like, the first one is like 50 minutes. The second one is 30 minutes. Then the next one is, they're in between. Nothing is over an hour. But they just broke up this particular section. They put it in 6 videos. So it's not like one long few hour video, right? So you can watch it in segments. But he really started getting into the nitty gritty of it on how to do it in video 2, but you should listen to it to number 1. Like, I would adjure you, don't even try it if you haven't listened to number 1, right? Because he's also going to give examples of what they did with the guys in the military who had this top secret clearance, and they taught them is this process, this gateway process that they put them through, right? They just take guys, clearly you have to have a clearance, but they take these men and women and they put them through this course, right? They could come from not having any kind of spiritual knowledge whatsoever. They would take them, they would put them through this gateway process, and they will completely understand and they will know how to operate. But what happens is when they're taken, and I think it's a misuse and an abuse of people, right? Because what began to happen to them, because they didn't let this process develop on its own, like through when you actually are aware of it. Oh, I can do this. And then you began to do it naturally, and you start with the prayer and the meditation and breathing. You should actually grow into it. When you grow into it, it just develops naturally, and your gifts or your abilities or your cities just become stronger, right? But you can also take them and put them through and teach them how to do it, and they'll do it. And they use these men and women to remote view into places to pull intel, information. They learn how to manipulate scenarios, situations, people, places, and things, right? They told them how to do this, and they were extremely good with it. But what happened to these men and women, right? A lot of them end up committing suicide. Why? Because they taught them how to use something in their body that they really didn't understand. Yeah, what happens with snipers sometimes, they put you through this rigorous training and it works. You can become a well-oiled machine. They teach them how to do it, and they just do it by it's like a mechanical, they just learn how to do it, just like a well-oiled machine. But when they don't take them through and give them the understanding of what's happening with their body and how it develops and how your consciousness is developed and it grows, when they don't actually understand what they're doing and they just been kind of operating out of what they've been, I ain't gonna say ignorantly taught, because this is a whole nother level of ignorance. So it's like a competent ignorance. You're competent in what you're doing and you're very proficient in it, but you wouldn't be able to, it throws your body out of balance, for lack of better words. So as they get older and say the military is done using them, or they get out, a lot of them, like I said, they end up committing suicide. They become alcoholics, trying to drown out the things that they saw and the things that they done and the things that they were made to do with their own ability, right? They taught them how to do this. And they taught them how to use it in ways that wasn't holistic. It was ways to where it harmed other people. It broke natural laws against people, against themselves. But there's military and they were trained to do it, right? So that's why I said, listen to it. That's why I'm not in the habit of just giving you things. Go do it. This is how you do it, because it's a lot of different ways you can do it. Some people can. People can start remote viewing an astral projecting, where they're sitting down, where they're laying down. People got these whole routines that they go through to get themselves ready to do it, and it still works for them. It's a personal experience, right, Leisha? The rule is to do no harm, but the military didn't teach them that, and that's what caused their mind and their conscience really to begin to fight back against them, and they didn't know how to handle it. They didn't really know what was going on. That's why I'm like, take the time, let's read it together. I'm not going to just throw something out there, but I will give you him, because he goes through and he explains that if you go out here doing it without really understanding what's going on, you could possibly hurt yourself and other people. That's why he takes not a long time, but he's very thorough. I really like this doctor. And plus I know he ain't full of shenanigans, because I've experienced a lot of what he's talking about. So I will recommend him, right? But also, what you're going to find out if you just start going in looking at all his stuff, you're going to see a lot of stuff about UFOs, right? Oh, look, I seen some of his stuff. Y'all rest his soul. I'm not even going to say his name, because he's passed on now. There was a particular YouTuber that did a lot of videos on UFOs and sightings in the sky and everything. And I would ask about, well, where you getting these things from, right? But I realize now, but I would never get a response. And I know a lot of people were asking, okay, where are you getting this from? Because, we research, we know we see things in the sky. So you will see on his page, he's talking about some things that are being labeled UFOs. So he gets kind of into that. But don't jump into that yet. It's all going to make sense. Don't jump into that yet, right? If you're not ready for it, because it's going to take you on a whole nother, not that it's bad, but you may not be ready to be exposed to the other entities that are here with us, because we clearly know that it's not just us here, right? We interact with what we know to be the spiritual realm or the unseen realm, and he gets into that. And they label the unseen realm UFOs, things that are not like us. So when you hear them saying UFOs, it's just what's not like us, right? So it's a lot of stuff up there about that, but they have a lot of different stuff up there. But they are also, you will see on YouTube people showing things with these lights and stuff in the sky or different things. A lot of stuff they see in California. That's why I ask people sometimes, like, y'all seeing the stuff in the sky? I ask my cousin. I said, look, I'm seeing these videos. People say this happened over in this part of California. I know you're here. Have you seen this? So I'm just trying to find out what's true and what's not true. I was like, because I'm not really seeing things here in the sky here. Although I seen something once and I thought I was tripping, but I just kind of brushed it off. But I realize now, this particular YouTuber, when he wouldn't respond to me about where he was getting his information from, I actually found it. I found the information and a lot of these things in his videos that he used, and a lot of the stuff you will find in some of this stuff that Dr. Greer has, right? So the way this particular YouTuber did the videos, it was more like fear-based, fear-mongering type videos, in my opinion, right? It get people hyped up and scared about something that's not 100% the truth the way you're explaining this. So I'm not going to say the name, but people who are here who know who I'm talking about, if you go looking into Dr. Greer, you're going to see that a lot of this stuff that this particular YouTuber who's now passed on was using, you will find that stuff in Dr. Greer's work, right? So, because they use a lot of it, and if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, you will know exactly what I'm talking about, especially when you get to it and you start seeing it, right? So, which made sense to me now why he would never share the resources on where he got this stuff from. So I'm like, okay. So I said all that to say, I'm going to share him with you. Just be sure to go through and watch it. And I'll give you the actual playlist where what I'm talking about is in there. It's going to give you the details. You can probably take about possibly 3 hours if you sit. Possibly about 3 hours if you got the time to sit and watch it all together. It's very educational. It'll keep you on the straight and narrow, so to speak, despookifying a lot of the stuff that we learned that's spooky in the church or other religious factions. Is going to help you understand a lot of that, and you're going to see the science behind it, right? And it's not so scary once you cut the light on. Okay. All right. Number 11, consciousness and energy. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe the way in which that consciousness operates to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we will first consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff with which our consciousness must work. The first point which needs to be made is that the two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world that we know it. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substance as opposed to energy, which is understood to mean a force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science knows that both the electrons, which spin in the energy field located around the nucleus of the atom, and the nucleus itself are made up of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, the atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids which orbit at extraordinarily high speeds. In his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, Itzhak Bentov gives the following figures. The energy grid, which composes the nucleus of the atom, vibrates at approximately 10, and it got to the 22nd power, and it's like learning math as the powers. So it's 10, and up in the right corner is 22. So I'm going to say 10 to the 22nd power. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I might be a little ignorant. Okay. The energy grid, which composes the nucleus of the atom, vibrates at approximately 10 to the 22nd hertz, which means 10 followed by 22 zeros. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at the rate of 10 to the 15, 10 followed by 15 zeros hertz. An entire molecule composed of a number of atoms bound together in a single energy field vibrates in the range of 10 to the 9th power hertz. A live human cell vibrates at approximately 10 to the 3rd power hertz. The point to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all is... Hold on. The point to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all is, like the universe which surrounds him, nothing more or less than an extraordinarily complex system of energy fields. The so-called states of matter are actually variances in the state of energy, and human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states, motion versus rest in a manner described in the following paragraph. So if that sounds like a bunch of blah, 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 you're going to probably just have to go back and read it a couple times as you understand it. Yes, shalom, shalom. Shayla, I don't know why your notification's not popping up. I just saw your comment. Okay, the next section is number 12, holograms. Energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode that creates a living pattern called a hologram. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov. Can you not stand there and sip out of that, son? Okay, can you go eat it in the dining room or just drink it without sipping it like that? Thank you. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous entry of the 3 pebbles radiate outward towards the rim of the bowl, Bentov further asks the reader to visualize that the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent surface of light, such as a laser. The result will be a three-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye when the glass of water itself is examined. The whole concept of holography, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to the physicists since the underlying mathematical principles are worked out by Dennis Gabor in 1947. He later won a Nobel Prize for his work. Laboratory demonstration of Gabor's work only occurred years later following invention of the laser. As biologist Lenyol Watson explains, quote, "The purest kind of light available to us is that produced by a laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves are of one frequency, like those made..." Hold on, these words are small, y'all. "Like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When 2 laser beams touch, they produce the interference pattern of light and dark ripples that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first off an object such as a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it can still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face." Number 13, the part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. Let me read that again. Okay, the part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we drop our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. I read it again because when I was reading it, y'all remember, did y'all watch Encanto? So remember when Maribel, she went to Bruno's room, and you got all them stairs out there, and she found his vision or the hologram. And remember, she found a piece because it was broken. and she had to get all the pieces. But when she put the pieces together, when she got back to her room, it recreated the vision or the hologram. That's what I saw when I was reading this. Adaya Shalom, Marie Shalom by Twabu. Okay. The smaller piece, the fuzzier and more distorted, would be the resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that the whole projection would be nonetheless made. The key to creating any hologram is that energy in motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. In the foregoing example, the pebbles represent energy in motion, while the water, before its agitation by the pebbles, represents energy at a state of rest. To activate, or in effect, to perceive the meaning of a holograph, energy, in this case a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by the interaction. Hold on. Let me read that again. Let's read the whole sentence. To activate, or in effect, to perceive the meaning of a holograph, energy, in this case a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by the interaction between the moving energy and the energy at rest. In the simple example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interference pattern in front of the coherent light to project the three-dimensional holographic image, its meaning, into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain Mind Bulletin, tells us, quote, another figure of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on the plate, end quote. Number 14, the consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state we call consciousness. With respect to states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as gateway uses, the process operates in the following way. As energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the electrostatic fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic images being perceived are projected upon those electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with and therefore read the energy carrier wave pattern passing through it. Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field, which comprises the human mind, determines the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix, which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, and it does this by comparing the image received with that part of its own hologram which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric form and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives, see Exhibit 2 on next page. Okay, so I'm going to go to Exhibit 2. If you got it, you can look at it. This is what Exhibit 2 shows. Make sure it's not blurry. Hold on, I'm going to lift it up for YouTube in a second, but for Facebook. You can see it just in case you can't look at the document at the same time. So it's a head, like in this cube dimensional box, and it's cutting it into different hemispheres. Okay, so up here on YouTube, you should be able to see it now. Just in case you can't click on the link at the same time and listen while you watching. Okay, let's go back. And it shows the left hemisphere conscious grid and the right hemisphere conscious grid. Okay. See Exhibit 2, next page. As psychologist Keith Floyd puts it, quote, contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. Number 15, brain and phase. The consciousness process is most easily envisaged if we picture the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it, such that all the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics to reduce the data to two-dimensional form. Dana said, wasn't it Jason Bourne that did something like this? They show all kinds of hidden gems and stuff in Jason Bourne. Probably so. I'm not sure specifically which installment of that series, that movie series you're talking about, but there's a lot of stuff in Jason Bourne. Okay. The consciousness process is most easily envisaged if we picture the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it, such that all of the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics to reduce the data to two-dimensional form. Bentoff states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a simple binary go, no-go system as do all digital computers. I'll read that again. Bentoff states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a simple binary go, no-go system, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over holographic information it wishes to interpret and reduce that information mathematically to two-dimensional form, it can completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any computer made by the hand of man can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds operate in the same way, perceiving by comparison only. Bentoff states the proposition this way: our whole reality is constructed by constantly making such comparisons. Whenever we perceive something, we always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain, in its holistic, non-linear, and non-verbal mode of functioning, acts as the primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input, while by operating in phase or coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary computer-like method of functioning to screen further the data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form. Number 16, evaluation. To the extent that Gateways succeeds in bringing about a refinement in energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram, not of course accessible by sense perception, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of Pribram and Boehm appear to account for all transcendental experience paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. She goes on to say of Priram, quote, Currently, he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as a part of nature. Listen to that again. Currently, he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as a part of nature. C.I.A. overstanding 7777. Is that 3 sevens? I said 4. 777. Look, so basically what they just said, they're removing all the spookiness from things that we call supernatural or paranormal. They're removing the spookiness and explaining to you what's happening scientifically, how the mind perceives things and how it creates things, and even things that we come in contact with, right? There's a way to figure all this out. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. Number 17, self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspect of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e., self-cognition. Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment evaluating the functioning of their thought processes against various objective standards they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own holograms, project them out, perceive that projection, and put it through comparison with the memory aspect where its evaluation standards of measure are stored of its own hologram, and measure or sense the differences using three-dimensional geometry and then binary go, no-go, pulse to yield virtual cognition about the self. Number 18, time, space, dimension. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Now the fun begins. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be accessed in the dimension of time-space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time-space is the next task we must address. To do this, we must first appreciate what time and space are in order to understand how the dimensions that they constitute can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it is a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location which is distinguishable from other locations, and it has in parentheses space. Energy, which is not confined, is force without limit. I read it again. Energy, which is not confined, is force without limit, without dimension, without limits of form. It is infinity, cannot move because there is nothing beyond infinity, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if differentiate I'll read the whole sentence again. Hold on, I'm screwing it up. I'm sorry. It is infinity, cannot move because there is nothing beyond infinity, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if energy is in the state of infinity, there are no boundaries, no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy in infinity means energy uniformly extended without limit. It has no beginning, no end, no location. It is conscious force, the fundamental, primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy and motion out in the various dimensions which make up the created universe, but it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the created but it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the active universe. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness is altered states of being. Let me start it over. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness is in altered states of being may gain access. What? Hold on. Let me read that again. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness in altered states of being may gain access. Oh, okay, I get it now. I was reading it too fast and didn't understand what in the world I was saying. Okay. Theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops and the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. Number 19. Intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, i.e., without boundaries, it occupies every dimension to include time-space dimension in which we have our physical existence, but we cannot perceive it. It overlays everything, as do many of the intervening gradients or dimensions through which the energies of the universe pass on their way to and from their home in the state of infinity, the absolute. To enter these intervening dimensions human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern which comprises that consciousness, i.e., the brainwave output, can accelerate to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, would look virtually like a solid plane. Achievement of this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non-time space dimensions because of the operation of a principle in physics known as Planck's distance. I'm gonna have to look that up, because I told y'all, because I'm experiencing some different things while in meditation, right? I gotta look this up. Planck's, hold on. That might help me understand something that I've been experiencing. Okay. Achievement of this state. Let me read the last two sentences. Okay. To enter these intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern which comprises that consciousness, i.e., the brainwave output, can accelerate to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, will look virtually like a solid plane. Achievement to this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non-time space dimensions because of the operation of a principle in physics known as Planck's distance. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brain wave, reaches 2 points of complete rest, which constitute the boundaries of each individual oscillation, i.e., movement up or down. Without these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. But it is also true that when, for an infinitesimally brief instant, that energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest, it clicks out of time-space and joins infinity. See Exhibit 3, next page. Okay, so if you go click over to the next page, well, you probably can't do it while you listen to me. Okay. So right there for Facebook, I'm showing it for Facebook first. Make sure is that blurry? You can look at that. All right, move it up here for YouTube. Okay. That's kind of like the example, and he got the numbers, the math, and all that stuff in here. Okay, let's go back. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brainwave, reaches 2 points of complete rest, which constitute the boundaries of each individual oscillation, i.e., movement up or down. Without these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. But it is also true that when, for an infinitesimally brief second, or for an instant brief moment, that energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest and it clicks out of time space and joins infinity. See Exhibit 3, next page. That critical step out of time space occurs when the speed of oscillation drops below 10 to the negative 33rd power centimeters per second, Planck's distance. To use the words of Bentov, quote, quantum mechanics tells us that Quantum mechanics tell us that when distance go below Planck's distance, which is 10 to the negative 33rd centimeter, we enter, in effect, a new world. To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such a high frequency that the pattern of click-outs comes so close together that there, excuse me, I gotta take a sip of water, that there is virtually continuity in it. And I think that's what was happening. I definitely got to look up Planck's distance. Okay. Let me read it again. I'm sorry, y'all. To use the words of Bentov, quote, quantum mechanics tells us that when distances go below Planck's distance, which is 10 to the negative 33rd centimeter, we enter, in effect, a new world. To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such high frequency that the pattern of click-outs comes so close together that there is virtual continuity in it. Then a portion of that consciousness is actually postulated to establish and maintain its information collection function in those dimensions located between located between time, space, and the absolute. Thus, as the almost continuous click-out pattern establishes itself in the continuous phase at speeds below Planck's distance, but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time-space after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. Let me read that sentence again. That was good. Thus, as the almost continuous click-out pattern establishes itself in continuous phase at speeds below Planck's distance, but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time-space after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. The gateway experience, with its associated hemi-sync technique, is apparently designed, if used systematically and patiently, to enable human consciousness to establish a coherent pattern of perception in those dimensions where speeds below Planck's distance apply. This holds true irrespective of whether the individual is experiencing his consciousness while in his physical body, or whether he is doing so after having separated that consciousness from the physical body, i.e. the so-called out-of-body state mentioned earlier. We'll be at? We're at hour 23. Let me see. Oh. Maybe I'll read up to 22. Woo. Well, let me read up to 22. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read up to 22. We're at 20 now. Subatomic particles. Like, if y'all got to go to work, go to work. Don't get in trouble. This is recorded. Trina, go to work. Trina said, I'm at my desk. I tuned in, but I can focus, so I can't focus, so I'm gonna watch later. I feel like I want money to grow on trees. I don't want to work because I be missing the reading. Yeah, don't let me get y'all in trouble. If y'all working for Caesar, render what's due unto Caesar, right? You come back here and watch this. But I know y'all like to be live so y'all can ask questions or something. Okay, Tanya 3000. Shalom. You've been seeing lights in the sky. See if you can get some pictures of some of that stuff, because I be out. When I be out, I be looking. Like one time I thought, I shared it with my husband. He said, girl, you tripping? I said, I know what I saw. I know what I saw in the sky. It was a daytime, and I could have sworn I saw, it was, maybe I shouldn't share. I'm gonna keep my thoughts to myself for the moment. But I know what I saw. But I was driving, so I couldn't get a picture of it. If I was walking, I would have tried to take a picture of it just to make sure I wasn't tripping. It was there because I saw it, and I'm like, wait, what? What is that? Oh, is that? Hold on, what? I know I'm tripping. That's a reflection. Let me take my glasses off. It was still, I was like, what? What is that? And I was stopped at a light. But when I was going to go pull out my phone, the light changed. I'm like, crap. And I'm like, Jeremiah, you see that? He's like, I said, right there, up in the sky. I was like, it looked like this big transparent. I said, I know it's transparent, but up against the cloud, you can kind of see it just a little bit. You can kind of like see the outline because it was like half on the cloud, half on the blue sky. That's how I was able to. So I was like, no, maybe it's a cloud. I thought I was tripping. I was like, look, do you see that? I was like, take a picture of it. If like right in it, just take a picture. Although you say you can't see it, just take a picture of this area. You know, but by the time he got his camera out, well, where you want me? I'm trying to explain to him. It darn disappeared. So, but I know what I saw. And when I was coming, y'all probably don't know the street. Y'all in other states. I was about to give you the name of the street and everything, where I saw it, give you details. But anyway, we'll get into that later. Okay. Number 20, subatomic particles. But that's like the only thing of that nature that I've seen based on some of the other things that people catch in the sky. That's the only thing I've personally seen here in Virginia. But I know here in Virginia, they heavily spray the skies. Like yesterday, the last couple of days, it was crazy the way they spray the skies. Because you can tell the difference between the chemtrails and the contrails. Contrails is short for condensation trails, and that's the natural condensation that comes from planes. And if you go out there and you pay attention in the sky, you will see when airplanes are passing over, there's a small like white smoke that's coming from the back, but it'll quickly disappear. As the plane goes, it just disappears. You know, it never stays. Chemtrails, which is short for chemical trails, are those ones that stay in the skies. Those long white streaks, as planes out, long white streaks spraying the skies, and then they stay there. They stay there and they begin to expand, and they cover the sky. They normally sometimes they start early, but they're really trying to cover up the night sky, which is very intriguing to me. And I'm wondering what they're truly trying to cover up, because when they spread, it'll block out the sun. Like the stuff that they create, it'll block out the sun like regular clouds would if the sun goes behind the clouds. And it'll also cover up the moon. And when it covers it up, you will notice, well, clearly if you just pay attention in nature, it causes everything to cool down. You know, so I'll be paying attention to a lot of this stuff, but it'll completely cover the sky. It's unnatural. They're like unnatural clouds or cloud spread in the sky from those chemtrails, right? So, all right. Number 20, subatomic particles. The behavior of subatomic particles provide an interesting example of the phenomenon of clicking out discussed in the preceding paragraphs. In an article prepared for Science Digest magazine, Dr. John Gliedman mentions the way in which subatomic particles communicate with each other once their energy fields become entrained as a result of colliding with each other. The communication concerned is, of course, postulated to be occurring during the click-out phase in the oscillating of energy fields comprising the subatomic particles concerned. It is this cause which accounts for the cross-communication at what, in terms of time-space velocities, would seem to involve speeds in excess of light. In reality, Einstein's theory of relativity is not being invalidated, but rather the communication concerned is taking place outside the dimension of time-space to which the theory of relativity is strictly confined. Specifically, Dr. Gliedman tells us quantum theory postulates a kind of long-range Siamese twin effect whenever two subatomic particles collide and then go their different ways. Even when the particles are halfway across the universe from each other, it says they instantaneously respond to each other's actions, and in doing so, they violate relativity's ban on faster than light velocities. Indeed, regarding attempts to quantify what is known about the behavior of energy in dimensions apparently outside of time-space, Bentov speaks about, quote, courageous physicists who are working on hypothetical particles called tachyons, which can move at speeds higher than light. The speed of tachyons starts just above the speed of light and ranges all the way to infinite velocities, end quote. Number 21, dimensions in between. Now that we have postulated the legitimacy of assertion that the energy forms which compose consciousness can move beyond the time-space dimension, we need to turn our attention to the energy forms which inhabit those dimensions between time, space, and the absolute. In doing so, we may better perceive the form that reality assumes when we encounter it in those intermediate dimensions. In this context, Bentov tells us that, quote, the casual relationship between events breaks down, movements become jerky rather than smooth. I'll read it again. The casual relationship between events break down. The casual relationship between events break down, movements become jerky rather than smooth. Time and space may become grainy or chunky. Perhaps a piece of space can be traversed by a particle of matter in any direction without necessarily being synchronized with a piece of time. In short, a pair of events in either time or space, the pair not being connected casually but by a random fluctuation. End quote. What Bentov means is that inside the dimension of time-space, where both concepts apply in a generally uniform way, there is a proportional relationship between them. A certain space can be covered by energy moving in either particle or wave form in a certain time, assuming a specific velocity virtually anywhere in the time-space universe. The relationship is neat and predictable. However, in the intermediate dimensions beyond time-space, the limitations imposed on energy to put it into a state of oscillating motion are not uniform as they are in our physical universe. A myriad of various distortions and incongruencies are thus likely to be encountered, such that our nice, neat assumptions concerning the relationship between time and space as we know it in this dimension do not apply. But even more important, access is open to both the past and the future when the dimensions of current time space is left behind. So once you get into that, or what we would say that meditative state, when you enter there, time and space is, you're no longer operating on time and space. You can actually go back into the past and you can pull information that happened. You can see what's going on now around you, farthest away from you where you want to go. You have access to that information. And also information that could possibly happen in the future based on the events of today. So if you see something, and different movies will show this. You have different movies, like a good one, Back to the Future. They show it a lot. The Crazy Scientist, he was on to something. They were showing you something in this movie. So the future, it's kind of a little bit twist on it, but I understand it now. So the future is not necessarily set in stone. And if you choose to go into the future to see possible events or probable events, it's possible that when you get to that point in time in the future where the future is currently today, it's possible that it could change based on the choices that we make today. So what you see It may not necessarily happen that way. It could be close to it. It just depends on what's currently happening on a day-to-day basis that'll really ingrain that into cement. And we won't know that it's grained into cement until we actually get there, and there is today, if that makes sense. Okay. There's a lot of movies that show that. So, but when you get to that level, you hear some people, if you've been scrolling around on YouTube looking into some of these things, deep meditation, you will start coming across people that are giving their out-of-body experiences or the astral projection, or people, you will hear the term Akashic records. And he also mentioned it as well. When they say Akashic records, I think the church, what would the church call that? I would just say wisdom right from Yah, things that happen in the past. So you get say you praying for somebody or something, and you get a download of something that that happened in their past. Or say somebody comes to the altar for healing, and your gift is operating. You may not necessarily know all the specifics about it, but you just know how to use it, right? You got the keys and you know how to use it. And you're able, some people, they'll lay their hands on people and they'll actually be able to see different things that happened in their life and in their childhood that brought them here today. That would be considered, it's like prophecy, or the gift of knowing, right? That's what the church would call it. A couple of those things, or divine revelation, something like that. That's how that's happening. And so in other places, they would call that tapping into the Akashic records, or reading the Akashic records of things that's happened in the past, right? So you're actually able to do that when you get there, and when you get to that point of meditation or prayer or whatever you want to term it, when you get there, that's when that level of information and knowledge, and words of knowledge. Thank you, obedience to Yah. Words of knowledge. That's what the church called it. Words of knowledge. Other like the occultic, or they call it New Age, whatever. Terrible terms. They say they're going to tap into the Akashic records to see what happens. And you'll also notice, if you ever watch anything, or you come in contact, or you know people who read crystal balls, or read your palms and stuff like that. That's all they're doing. That is all they're doing. There's nothing spooky about it. They just term it differently. And because you don't know what they're doing and you haven't learned how to do it yet, they make money off you. Okay. What Bentov means is that inside the dimension of time-space, where both concepts apply in a generally uniform way, there is a proportional relationship between them. A certain space can be covered by energy moving in either particle or wave form in a certain time, assuming a specific velocity virtually anywhere in the time-space universe. The relationship is neat and predictable. However, in the intermediate dimensions beyond time, space, the limitations imposed on energy to put it into a state of oscillating motion are not uniform as they are in our physical universe. A myriad of various distortions and incongruencies are thus likely to be encountered, such that our nice, neat assumptions concerning the relationship between time and space as we know it in this dimension do not apply. But even more important, access is open to both the past and the future when the dimension of current time space is left behind. And we're going to read 22, and we're going to pause after this. 22 is special status, out-of-body experience. Although human consciousness can, with enough practice, move beyond the dimension of time space and interface with other energy systems in other dimensions, the entire process is appreciably enhanced if that consciousness can be detached in large measure from the physical body before such interference is attempted. Once an individual becomes proficient in the technique of outer body movement and then reaches the point where he is able to break out of time-space while out of his body, he gains the advantage of clicking out, part of his enhanced consciousness, while starting from a base located much closer to the dimension with which he wishes to communicate. In other words, since he is starting from a point much higher up, To use an analogy from the time-space context, that part of his consciousness is involved in clicking out will have that much more time to interact in dimensions beyond time-space because less time is required to traverse the intervening layers. Moreover, once the individual is able to project his consciousness beyond time-space, that individual is, that consciousness, let me read it over. Moreover, once the individual is able to project his consciousness beyond time-space, that consciousness would logically tend to entrain its frequent output with the new energy environment to which it is exposed, therein greatly enhancing the extent to which the individual's altered consciousness may be further modified to achieve a much heightened point of a focus and a much refined oscillating pattern. As a result, a self-reinforcing process should ensue whereby the farther consciousness in the out-of-body state can be projected beyond the time-space dimension, the more its level of energy output would be enhanced, thus promoting the potential for still further travel. The tentative conclusion to be drawn is that the out-of-body state may be regarded as an extremely effective way of accelerating the process of enhancing consciousness and of interfacing with dimensions beyond time-space. If the practitioner of the gateway technique has a choice of concentrating on achieving and exploiting the out-of-body experience as opposed to concentrating his full efforts on expanding his consciousness exclusively from a physical base, the former would appear to promise much faster and more impressive success than does the latter. And that is where we're going to end at today. At the end of 22, we'll pick this back up tomorrow because we're over our time today. All right, y'all. So if you got it and you want to keep reading ahead, just read ahead. You know, sometimes you may have to read something a couple times before it actually clicks in with you. So sometimes I have to read stuff over. Either I'm reading it too fast or reading it too slow and I'm not understanding what I'm reading. And you should do that. Make sure you truly understand what's being said. I know they're gonna start using a lot of scientific words, but I think they did a good job. After they give them scientific words, they give you like an example, for example, you know, to kind of help you stay on course with them, right? Okay, so I hope y'all enjoyed that today. I will share those two things I said I was going to share with you. When we was reading the Torah, I told you I was going to share the links from some of the bigger story with Abraham and Sarah and some of the deeper things that was happening when Pharaoh was trying to get him some from her, when the angels slapped him up a little bit. I'm going to share that. And I'm going to also share Dr. Greer's particular training about church calls it out of body. Other places call it out of body, but it's also called remote viewing. So if you go Googling around and YouTubing, you will find some people's personal experiences. And I would recommend. Okay. I would recommend, like, if you're trying to really get familiar with it, especially if it's been happening to you, but it's been happening kind of like by default. You find yourself there, you don't know how you got there, so you can kind of get control over your gifts. Because when it starts happening to you, it's probably time for you to understand what's happening to you, so you can begin using on purpose. But as you grow and develop, some things will just automatically begin to arise and begin to happen inside of you. And I wish we had grown up with teachers who were very well versed and trained in a lot of these things. So as they begin to happen to us, we know what's going on and we don't think we're losing our mind or we crazy and stuff, because we're seeing things other people can't see. We're hearing things other people can't hear. But it's a natural process that should begin to happen in you. You'll find it happening probably, I can't even say that. I've seen it. It just begins to happen, but you will tend to notice it if you're on a path to spirituality, so to speak. I ain't saying being religious, If you're becoming a more spiritual person, removing all the religious dogma and stuff, you'll begin to notice some things. And it would be helpful to have teachers. So I looked around. I was looking at different people's out-of-body experience. I'm like, okay, what did you do? You know, so it's some funny ones up there, some scary ones up there. But take it. Don't try. I'm going to try and be a good teacher. I'm going to tell y'all, not try and use their methods. Although I know some of the methods that they also explain work, because I tried it. But some methods may not be so cool for you to try, right? Because it just might not be enjoyable, especially if you don't know what's going on. Not that it's not or it's anything crazy or anything, but you really should understand what's happening to you. Make sure you have a thorough understanding and then begin to practice it on purpose, especially if it's like something that has been happening to you all your life. You constantly have out-of-body experiences and you don't really know how to control that gift, so to speak, or you constantly seeing into the spirit, or you hear audibly the other realm. Like, those things happen to me. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? So I'm doing all this kind of research. Okay, what's happening? What is this? Is people crazy? You know, that's how I found out a lot of people end up in the crazy house, right? They got gifts going on, and then they tap into something. Somebody showed them, oh, this how you do this, how you control that, or you kind of calm that down. You smoke a little weed. You know, they get the wrong teachers coming into their life. So I would say you can listen to it, see what's happening to other people, so you know you ain't crazy, right? But learn about it from somebody that's going to give you a good scientific explanation, so I can go into it. Because like I said, I'm a data and facts person. I'm taking notes. I'm tracking, because I need to know I ain't being led astray, and I'm gonna find myself in a dark corner somewhere and I ain't got the tools to get out, right? So that's why I like the things that I share with you. It's coming from a more scientific, more specific, like lights are fully on. We can see what's here. This is what's happening. We're going to show it to you in your body. Remove all the spookiness. There's no boogeyman in here. Look, I'm going to go in here and show you. Look, see? Look, let's walk around the house together. Look, nobody else is in here but us, right? That's how I like to take that approach. Your science was your worst subject. Just keep listening, Dana. Just listen out for the examples and stuff, right? And you will get it. The more you expose yourself to it, the more it will really come to life. Because I used to think science was really like the worst thing, like, oh, all that terminology and medical terms and A&P. I was like that growing up, but now I've had more experience in life, and also the process of homeschooling my children and looking through some of that stuff, and they looking at that. I was like, well, shoot, I don't know. I didn't even pay attention to that when I was in school. We're going to skip this. Let me see. Let me adjust, though. I'm like, man, pull yourself together. You can't do this, you know. So, but I actually relearned a lot of stuff in science by going through my children in their kindergarten and first grade and second grade. Like, I had to go all the way back to grade school. Let me look at it. Oh, shoot. Cumulus nimbo clouds. You know, so seriously, I had to take it all the way back there. So my understanding is progressive. You know, Seth, ayahuasca. I be pronouncing it wrong. Yeah, the new phenomenon of out-of-body experience. I haven't tried it. They actually have trained holistic healers that will help you experience out-of-body by using that particular herb. Do it work? I'm told it does, and I'm told it does really well. But I'm just not in the habit of having something else control me. I just can't do it. So I'm going to tell y'all to stay away from the drugs and those type of helps to help you get to that state, right? And especially if you by yourself. If you ain't got somebody, thank you. Yeah, that's my preferred method. I'm just like, y'all guide me. Teach me how to do this naturally. That's my preferred method too. And that's what I'm going to tell y'all. But I will let y'all know it is other stuff out there. And I am not recommending it, right? Because first of all, that's not the path I walk. So I can't really teach you about it. Some people that walk that path may completely disagree with me. Oh, it's completely safe. Okay, I get that. I understand this. And I get it. But that's just not my preferred path. Because I know that there is a path where I can do it naturally, holistically, and I don't need to do that stuff. Like the only herbs and stuff I put in my body is like the fruits and veggies and stuff. Those things I'll use. But some of those, the ones where you actually change the properties of it and you burn it, and now you're taking in the impurities in yourself and fire within your chest. I can't agree with that, right? Because it changes the natural state, and it causes massive releases of different chemicals in your brain, and it could get off balance. I'm just not in a habit of walking that particular path, and it works. I heard it works really well, and people they pull it from it works, but it's just not the path I'm walking on, and that's not the path I'm ever going to tell you to take. We like slow and steady. Some people leave, it's like, you going too slow, just give me the good stuff. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how, but I will I'll give you something, if I give you anything at all, right? That's going to instruct you so you know exactly what you're doing. It's like, you are not going to get the keys to this car to take the road test until I know you can pass this written test. That's just my preferred method, because I got to know that you know what you're doing. I ain't going to put an inferior product out in the world, because that's going to come back to me. I'm going to be responsible for that. Yeah, no, I ain't signing my name on that. So I'm going to tell y'all, instruction is the best way. Let wisdom be your mother, right? Get understanding. Get the raw data and facts. It takes a little longer. It may take years, but I guarantee you it's a road well traveled. And by the time you get to the points of wisdom, you'll be able to identify everybody who took unauthorized shortcuts, right? You're going to see them in all kinds of craziness that you were kept from because you learned the manual way and you did it appropriately. You learned about different pitfalls and stuff, because you can see people running ahead being foolish, leaving class early. Oh, yep, they told us about this. Yep, I'm gonna learn from that. Yep. Case in point. All right, I'm gonna keep steady my slow little jog like the tortoise, and just observing, right? So we may go a little bit slower than other people, but I'm telling you, it'll keep us safe. And maybe it's just me, because I come from a background where I'm extremely scary, right? And maybe that was a good thing. But I'm going to make sure all those that's coming with me, we ain't going to get into no trouble here, right? You know, I might be moving a little too slow, so you might want to go find another group, because I ain't that. At times where I know we can sprint, we can run. Oh, yeah, I know this. I've been here. Come, let's go. Let's pick up speed a little bit. But when we need to slow down, let's slow down. Make sure everybody understands. That's just the road I take. That's how we do here, right? If I'm going too slow, I'm sorry. We just going to keep going slow, but we're going to get there, right? So I'm going to share Dr. Greer's stuff with you about the outer body and why he does some deeper explanation, but not so deep that you can't understand. He'll really keep your attention, because he's going to add in a lot of personal stories. What he, like I said at the beginning, what he's seeing that they do to the military men and women, what happened to them when they push them. They just like give them the keys, go. We'll show you how to get a working knowledge of this and just go. And he's gonna share the details on how that was bad for them, because they didn't let that process happen naturally in their body. The military takes something in our natural body and they speed up the process so they can control it. To whereas if you let this happen naturally, holistically, these people, first of all, they want to even submit themselves to you to use what they know that they are capable of for your nefarious purposes, right? Because it develops as you grow in understanding and in love. And love truly is. It may sound overrated or cliche, but it really is. Love is literally the what's going to guide you along the way, or it really is love of yourself. And when you love yourself, you're going to begin to love others, because you're going to realize that they are part of you, and you wouldn't do anything to hurt yourself, so you're definitely not going to do anything to hurt them. And as you begin to operate like that, those gifts will begin to sharpen, and they'll come more alive, and you can practice them more, and they'll become proficient, right? So, and you can become efficient in it. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get out of here. We almost at 2 hours. And Bella ain't came down these stairs yet. So I'm going to go ahead and end this, right? Because I got a couple things that I have to get done today. All right. So y'all, the blessing, remember, it is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah will kneel before us presenting gifts, and will guard us with a hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people, I love y'all. I'll get this stuff posted that I said I was gonna share with y'all. I'm gonna do it right now. All right, so I share with you. Make sure you're looking at the right stuff, and remember, listen to his first video in the playlist. It's 6. It's not that long, but the first one is the longest. He's given a lot of good detail and stuff, but he actually started getting into the nitty gritty of it, starting at 2, 3, and 4 is extremely good. It's extremely good, and he gives some working exercises and stuff. It's safe, and he goes through and makes sure you understand it thoroughly before you do it and what's happening, right? And I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. It's nice. It's not too long. It's nice, sweet, and to the point where you can understand it. And there's like really no room left for wait a minute. I still have questions, So give me a couple minutes, and I'll post it in the community section on YouTube and in the chat box under this video today, and I'll post it on a separate post on Facebook and also in the chat section of this video today. So, all right, beautiful people, I love y'all. See y'all back here tomorrow morning, 7:30, because it's Saturday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bruce.